Hello, everyone. So, as you know, the whole country of Ireland is pretty much a sham. And there's no difference with this. Every part of the society, pretty much every government agency is just a sham. And no different to the Department of Education, third level institutions. And this is to do with student visas from people coming overseas to study here, take this up in Dublin or wherever in Ireland. And obviously, there's huge European grants, etc., given to people from India, etc., etc., that come over here, basically pays for the whole education. But this is the thing: a lot of people don't stay when you get a visa, student visa. That's what we call it here. You study, you do your studies here, and then you're gone. Pretty much, you have no entitlement to work or anything. That you're just studying. A lot of people, and again, because the Gardaí in this country, as you know, the Gardaí, the bureau that's in charge of making sure immigration works, etc., etc., rather than that, make sure it works, is only about 180 officers in the whole country. 180 officers, just to make sure there's nobody here illegally. That's all that's in the whole state of the Republic of Ireland. 180 or so. Basically, people can just flee to a different part of Ireland. The Gardaí wouldn't know a hate about it. Let's put it that way. And not that they really care either. The Irish state couldn't give a shit. If people here illegally and stuff, they just couldn't be bothered to chase people to find out that. But if you don't pay your TV license, we're going to find out very soon about that. But take for example, there's a lot of people from India, from Pakistan coming here. A huge numbers of people from India and Pakistan. But I don't know how they get the money for it because, again, as I say, the European Union is pretty much paying for it all. Why Irish people have to pay it themselves, so there's not much money given to Irish people. It doesn't make much sense. But anyway, long story short, we should be looking at it because there's a lot of people here, and again, a few people have been deported, thankfully, who overstayed their student visa, who basically completed their study or made up a story that they were going to study and came here to work or run a business or do something. And again, that's all kind of a scam in a way too, because we shouldn't be giving out visas left, right, and centre. Because this goes into my next point, that at the moment in time, across the whole country of Ireland, take for example in Sligo, the student accommodation for students, for people that's supposed to be studying in Sligo, all used for accommodation Ukrainians and people who are seeking international protection. What I mean by that is people coming from safe countries, young men particularly, in their 20s and stuff, with no families, just coming here with iPhones and etc. And they're put into their student accommodations, and there's no student accommodations for the majority of people going to Sligo. And that makes people having to travel long distances on buses, etc., etc., being absorbed in weds in the Wedland market, etc. There's no different in Dublin too. Dublin is pretty bad too. There's literally people going out with flyers in Dublin begging people to, if they have a spare room in their house, to rent it out to them. That's what the stage we're at in the first world country. So we shouldn't be accepting really the number of student international visas for people wanting to come here to study. We should be accepting very little. At most, we should be only accepting maybe 1,000. We're probably accepting, God knows, probably 5,000-6,000 a year for people to study, mostly from India, etc. But we should be only accepting about 1,000, maybe 500 the most, something like that. But it's far too many people coming here to study, and it's putting too much pressure on the student accommodation because the student accommodations are scams too, and along with the rents, etc., etc., across the country. What I mean by that, when there's a bigger demand, they can put the prices up. So obviously, thousands of people come from Timbuktu, etc., etc., here to study, and pretty much get everything paid for. That's going to put demand on Irish people, native people, to pay. And again, it's the majority of Irish people don't get anything. They have to pay for their education and stuff, which isn't right. It should be free for Irish people. To be totally honest, Simon Howes promised that he did promise it before the election, but Simon Howes is a bit of a gargle anyway, so I wouldn't pass much remarks on him. But when you promise something, you should deliver it. It's the same with Harvey. He said no child would wait 6 months, and unfortunately that young lad's dead now because Fine Gael's just incompetent bollocks us. Excuse my language, but that child should be alive today. There's no doubt. Many children are like him, unfortunately, at the moment, and it's a sad state of affairs of this country, and it's a stain on this country that this kind of carry on is happening. Not to mention this kind of carry on too of our young people literally been abused by the Irish state itself. Wanting to get to third level institution to get a good job, to get a good paycheck, to have a family, to buy a house, etc. The state fucks them over every turn they can get. But as I say, the international, when it comes to student visas, we should be very strict on who we're letting in. First of all, we should be doing double background checks, and what I mean by that is the people who are genuine people who are not coming here to abuse the system. And they should obviously pay a lot of it themselves too, instead of the Irish state or the European Union paying for it. It's only fair. And I would say the same for any Irish student that's going abroad too. It's only fair that if you're an Irish student saying going to study, take for example in Italy or Spain or wherever, Portugal, take for example, you fork out the most of it. You should fork out the most of it because it's only fair. Because it's not fair when you going over to, say, even Portugal, remember the European Union. It's not fair for an Irish person going over to Portugal and getting into college and their native people are not able to. That's what I take. You pay for it either you stay in your own country, you pay for it, you pay in other countries. That's the way I see it. But yeah, I suppose that just goes without saying, because it should go towards the native people and not people that are here, pretty much to get a freebie, etc. in a lot of cases. And I know this sounds a lot anti stuff, but that's what needs to be done, because the situation at the moment, again, it's the last few years, it's not just happened overnight. Like, take for example, last year too was an awful mess too. People couldn't get accommodation. People were travelling hours on buses to get here or there and everywhere to go to college. There's people I know in Cavan. They tried the best. I know three people who went to Trinity College, and we're going to Trinity College still at the moment. But three of them came together and they have part-time jobs, to get, because they haven't a small, I suppose, cottage here in Cavan, even though they're paying that sovereign rent for the three of them. Which is not as bad as in Dublin, but they tried to get an apartment in Dublin, the three of them together. They couldn't afford it. And they're students, and the government are giving them such and such grants and stuff. It's barely anything, pretty much. But they have a part-time job too. And they still couldn't afford it. And there was three of them, and they couldn't afford it. So it doesn't make any sense. And this was a private accommodation. They couldn't get a student accommodation. They had to get private accommodation by a landlord, etc. But still, it was a sovereign rent that didn't take it. What I'm saying too, and there's people from Westmeath afford going up to Dublin. There's people from all over Ireland spending hours and hours hopping up and down on buses. And it's insane. But at the same time, we shouldn't be taking in the number of people from internationally. And along with refugees, etc., shouldn't be taking them in, because it's too much of a burden on the Irish state, because we're spending hundreds of billions of euro on housing them, clothing them, and paying for their social welfare, etc. And that money should go towards making education free. It's total level education free in Ireland. Take for example, we heard recently enough, just before a few months ago, that Irish students would have to pay an extra €3,000 for total level education. That money, as I say, they would spend on direct provision, should be making total level institutions free for Irish citizens, and only really for Irish citizens in the way too. Should not be for anybody else. Maybe European Union countries, you could argue, but I think we have to put our own students first, because what's happening at the moment is we're not putting our own people first. We're not putting them first and centre. And we want them to get good jobs. They are more entitled than anybody else in the world to come here, because they're in their own country. They've been born here. They're more entitled. But anyway, that's far-right extremists, as they say. But this is the only way to go by it, because the way it's going at the moment for the last few years, we're just bringing everybody to study. And then it solves nothing, because, you still have a crisis. There's nothing changed, pretty much. The only way to change is stop people coming in and studying. And as they say, 500 or 1,000 would be good enough a year for somebody to apply for a student visa. At the moment in time, it's probably 10,000 a year that's coming here on student visas. It's insane. Like, it's ludicrous. And as I say, the majority from India and other countries in Asia too. Not just even in. There's nobody from Europe coming here, because they know. First of all, they wouldn't get the money to study here. First of all, so I don't get it. But long story short, that's the reality. But anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know if you're in college, etc. I just don't think it's fair. I just don't think it's a fair deal for people in Ireland, like young Irish people. I don't think it's fair, because as I seen yesterday, it was on the news too, and it's all over social media. Like, literally, young Irish people now have to go begging to rent have like a shed, pretty much, of people's backyard, just to have a place in Dublin near their college, and pay €1,000 for a shed a week. Like, that's the stage we're at in this country. And it's a sad state of affairs. It really, really is. But the only way to solve is putting your own people first. And that's the only thing about it. And it might be far-right extremists, but at the end of the day, that's what it has to come to, unfortunately. Because the way we've been doing it for the last few years has changed nothing. It's making things worse, if not better. And we're not better at all, but making things 100% worse, because nothing gets solved. We're just kicking the can down the road and making it worse. But anyway, let me know what you think. Subscribe, and bye.